just want to make a quick video to talk to you a little bit this week about our reading focus for the week. Of course, as you noticed so far, we are covering a wide array of different skills ranging from vocabulary to grammar to writing to reading. So again, just want to remind you that the goal is to really build a holistic set of skills, and I won't even say build, but to really reinforce skills that I know that you already know, but you might just need a refresher, reminder, or simply some additional practice just to reaffirm those skills. So this week, the reading focus is on discovering and finding main ideas, which of course is something that you know, and I'm sure that you do. But I just want to talk a little bit through this PowerPoint about what we're talking about. When we're talking about the main idea, it's a really important concept in terms of finding the central focus or the central theme as it relates to something that you are reading. Now, keep in mind, everything just about that we talk about as it relates to reading is also important when you are developing and practicing your skills as a writer, because if it's important to be able to recognize a main idea or basically to have a point with something that you are reading, then it's also important to be able to have a main idea or thesis or a point when you are writing something. So I just want you to kind of keep in mind that these skills are transferable from reading to writing and so on and so forth. So it's not enough to just have a topic, right? It's not enough to know that this is an essay about cats or to write an essay about cats. What's the point? The point has to be something deeper, more complex, simply beyond a simple statement of this is about. So the real words you want to kind of keep in mind is, what is the claim? What is the argument? What is the point that the writer is trying to make? And this applies when you're reading in a textbook. This applies when you are reading for literary purposes, just for fun and entertainment or engagement. And this applies when you are writing as well. So if we just look at it, in other words, good readers ask this question: what is the point that the author is trying to make about the topic? What is it that you want me to know or to be able to do or to understand about a particular topic? And I'm going to even use a different word instead of good. Now that's a familiar word, but a better word is an effective. Something or someone who effectively reads and can actually do something with what one has read is someone who understands not just the topic, but also the point, which would be the main idea. So, of course, this is important in terms of building our overall comprehension skills, but it's also important in terms of our reasoning skills. And before you can make an assessment about something or arrive at a conclusion about something, you have to be able to read it for understanding, so then you can apply that knowledge. If you are in a biology class and you are learning about, I don't know, photosynthesis, the goal is not just so that you can memorize the definition of what photosynthesis is, but so that you can use that knowledge in order to do something. For example, if you're trying to grow a plant, you know that a plant needs sunlight in order to convert the sunlight to sugar or something like that. I am not equipped in sciences and biology. I just use that as a random example. So going forward, if we were to look at this example, if you were to see these three isolated sentences in a paragraph, Seattle has the best coffee, Portland has the best tea, San Francisco has the best wine. Okay, you can walk away from what you read with those three random facts, right? And if you're ever on Jeopardy, you got an answer. But what is it that the author might want you to know? The question is, so what? So what? We might say, well, the three cities have good things to drink. Pretty basic. Or it's difficult to choose where to live, especially if you're trying to base that choice on what you would drink in the area. Or all of the best beverages are in West Coast cities, which all of those cities are on the West Coast. So you want to be able to look at what is stated and then derive meaning beyond what is stated. Okay? So when we think about how to find the main idea, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, well, what is the topic? What is it that we're talking about? We're talking about drinks, okay? And then what is the claim that is being made, all right? And are those claims, or is that claim supported by the details in the passage. You want to make sure that you differentiate between general ideas and specific ideas. So when we're looking for general ideas, that's just information regarding the point, right? The overall message. Specific things are probably going to be supporting details, okay? So let's just look at this brief passage. And there are a number of other exercises in this in this PowerPoint, but I just want to talk through a couple of them to, or really just one of them right now, to give you an idea. Now, the answers are not embedded here, but I want you to do a little bit of brain work, okay? Go through this PowerPoint and see what you think. See if you can figure out the answers. And, of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Now, in addition, let me say this while it's on my mind. There's also going to be an additional practice main idea worksheet that does have the answers noted. And then there's also going to be an assignment where you're reading a bit longer passage and answering 10 multiple choice questions. Now, that is the assignment piece regarding main idea this week. But let's just look at this brief excerpt. And this, it says, psychologists study groups because nearly all human activities, working, learning, worshiping, relaxing, playing, and even sleeping, occur in groups. The lone individual who is cut off from all groups is a rarity. Most of us live out our lives in groups, and these groups have a profound impact on our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Many psychologists focus their attention on single individuals, but social psychologists expand their analysis to include groups, organizations, communities, and even cultures. Okay, so the first question that we see here, it says this paragraph is the introduction to a chapter in a textbook. Are there new vocabulary words that we should define? I'm going to start with a question like that because remember last week we talked about context clues. Now I realize there's not much complex vocabulary in this paragraph, but we might look at a word like rarity, right? And just using context clues, if we are comparing the beginning of the sentence, the lone individual who is cut off from all groups is a rarity. Now, the preceding sentences, we're talking about context clues, okay? So the previous sentences talks about how just about everything happens in groups. So then if you are a loner, then that is rare, right? That is a rarity. That doesn't happen as often as we think that it might. Another word that you might be unfamiliar with is profound, which I'm sure you've heard that word. You probably know that word. You might not have used that word. But of course, keep in mind the goal of building these vocabulary skills is to also enhance the words that we use. So most of us live out our lives in groups, and these groups have a profound impact on our thoughts. So if we think about profound, major, significant, important, right? When it comes to vocabulary development, it's just about being able to substitute unfamiliar words with familiar words. That's basically what a definition is. So now, if we move forward in this, what is the topic of this? That says chapter. It should say passage. My apologies. But what is the topic of this passage? If we look at what's the topic here, we could talk about psychologists, right? We could talk about the difference between social psychologists and individual psychologists. But we could talk about living in groups. All of those things are ideas that are presented. But the real question is, what is the main idea? What is the point that the author is trying to make? Perhaps the author wants me to walk away from this passage with the knowledge that we, as a society, thrive best in groups. Groups influence the way that we think, the way that we live, the choices that we make, etc., etc. So you want to really make sure that you walk away with knowledge, not just facts, right? So when we think about reading to understand and comprehend, it's really about walking away with knowledge, not just facts. Facts say that plants use photosynthesis to create food, going back to that example. But knowledge says if I have a plant and I want my plant to thrive, I can't just water the plant, right? So in addition to watering the plant, I also need to make sure that that plant has adequate access to sunlight because plants need the sun in order to create food. So now I know what photosynthesis is because I have the knowledge, not just because I memorized the fact, okay? So when we're thinking about main ideas, understanding what it is that we read on a more deep or more complex level, then that's what we're talking about. Now, as you go through this PowerPoint, and I'm not going to go through all of it, you'll see other passages for you to work through. A little bit about signal words, paying attention to these signal words or transition words in passages and what it is that they teach us about what we're reading. Also, just want to remind you how to find the main idea, and this is an important skill. You might fit into this category of people who can read really, really well. I might even say very fluent readers who can read quickly, and you get to the end and you have nothing. What is it that you just read? Well, you might be able to say, well, it was a passage about psychologists. But what about psychologists? So you want to make sure that you're practicing as often as possible in terms of building those skills, okay? And since I've already kind of talked about the assignments that go along with this unit, with this lesson, I'll go ahead and end this here. I hope that all is going well. Of course, please do let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I will talk to you guys soon.